Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
In the automotive community, there's been a story going around for a while, and it's a problem because there was a car nicknamed Eleanor in a movie, actually several movies. And someone claimed to own the rights to the likeness of this car. And if you built a tribute car or a clone of that car, you might get sued by somebody who claimed that they owned the rights to do that. And a lot of people said that's not right. And most people in the car community said that's actually absurd. And so interestingly, this got litigated. And one of the litigants is Carroll Shelby Licensing, Inc., a California corporation, and the Carroll Hall Shelby Trust. And they were involved in litigation over whether or not you can make replicas of that movie car, any one of them, because there's more than one. And it got litigated, and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals just ruled a few days ago that no, you cannot claim ownership in that way of such a thing. So it's quite a long opinion. I'm not going to read all of it, but I'm going to go over the highlights. But the central question in this case is whether Eleanor is a copyrightable character. Eleanor is a collection of Ford Mustangs featured across 4 films, most recently in Gone in 60 Seconds in the year 2000. Now, many people know that was a remake of an older movie. The older movie was a cult classic. The new one, not so much, but hey, it's a matter of taste. So, appellants argue that Eleanor is copyrightable under this court's test for independent character copyright protection. So they're actually saying that the car is actually a character. I shouldn't laugh because so much litigation has preceded this that some people believed it was true. Appellant's argument stalls at the starting line. We hold that Eleanor is not a character, much less a copyrightable one. As explained below, we affirm in part and reverse in part. At the heart of this case are 4 films. Gone in 60 Seconds from 1974, The Junk Man, 1982, Deadline Auto Theft, 1983, and the remake, Gone in 60 Seconds, 2000. The films feature several Ford Mustangs called Eleanor. A summary of each film is helpful to the forthcoming analysis. In the original Gone in 60 Seconds, the film's protagonist and his team are tasked with stealing 48 types of cars. To discuss the targets discreetly, each one is assigned a common feminine code name such as Donna or Karen. One target, a yellow fastback Ford Mustang with black stripes, is designated as Eleanor. The protagonist encounters 4 Eleanors throughout the film, stealing all of them and driving one of them in a climactic police chase. And that police chase is one of the most famous car chases in the car chase genre. In a meta turn, The Junk Man features a protagonist who is the fictional director of Gone in 60 Seconds, a film within the film. The plot involves the protagonist evading an assassination attempt before the fictional premiere of Gone in 60 Seconds. Eleanor is made to look like the vehicle the protagonist drove and is severely damaged in the climactic chase in the original Gone in 60 Seconds. The side of the car is painted with the message, Eleanor, from the movie Gone in 60 Seconds, and a pull quote exclaiming, "The most hair-raising chase scene ever filmed." Deadline Auto Theft recycles and repurposes footage from the first 2 films in a service of a slightly revised plot of the original Gone in 60 Seconds. Accordingly, Eleanor's appearances are largely the same as in the original. The Gone in 60 Seconds remake features a familiar plot. The protagonist must steal 50 cars within a few days to save his brother's life from a gangster. Again, a common feminine code name is designated for each type of car. This time, Eleanor is the code name for a Shelby GT500 Ford Mustang. 2 versions of Eleanor appear in the film. The first is gray with black stripes and is stolen by the protagonist and driven in a climactic police chase. The second is rusty and stripped of paint, gifted to the protagonist at the film's conclusion. Got to have a happy ending. This is Hollywood after all. So the case is not the beginning of the parties' disagreement. The copyright holder to the first 3 films and the merchandising rights to Eleanor is, of course, one of the litigants here. After the remake's release in the early 2000s, Shelby licensed a custom car shop to produce GT500E Mustangs. Believing that the car unlawfully copied Eleanor's design, the copyright holder filed suit against Shelby and the car shop for several claims, including copyright infringement. They settled that lawsuit in 2009. The peace did not last, however. Shortly after the settlement, Shelby licensed someone to produce those Mustangs, and the copyright holder interpreted this as a violation of the settlement agreement. Accordingly, the copyright holder contacted GT500E owners and auction houses to assert a copyright interest in the vehicles, and also contacted the maker to demand they cease and desist in the production of these cars. Shelby thereafter initiated this lawsuit, asserting several claims against the copyright holder, including for breach of the settlement agreement and declaratory relief. Copyright holder brought counterclaims, including for copyright infringement and breach of the settlement agreement. The copyright holder also named the builder of the cars as a third-party defendant and asserted several claims, including copyright infringement. 3 holdings by the district court are relevant in the appeal. First, in resolving cross motions for summary judgment, the district court held that Eleanor was not entitled to character copyright protection. Second, after a bench trial, the district court dismissed the copyright holder's breach of contract claim against Shelby based on the settlement agreement. Third, after a bench trial, the district court denied Shelby's request for a declaration that the GT500CR does not infringe on any of the rights of the copyright holder. This court says we affirm on all grounds except as the denial of declaratory relief, which we reverse and remand for further proceedings. So the lower court said, number one, you can't copyright the car as a character. Number two, we're going to dismiss this claim based on the settlement agreement. And then the court actually denied the request for a declaration saying that the GT500CR does not infringe on any of the rights of the copyright holder. And the court denied that one. And this court saying, we agree, can't copyright Eleanor. 2, the settlement agreement was not breached. And 3, there should have been a ruling saying that the GT500CR does not infringe on any of the rights of the copyright holder. So the most interesting claim, I believe, is the first one. That's the question of whether Eleanor is entitled to character copyright protection. Now, another panel of this court previously suggested that Eleanor could be a character, but they said that as dicta, meaning it wasn't a ruling of theirs. They just said that as an aside while they're talking about something else. So we review questions of character copyrightability de novo, meaning they start at the beginning. However, because the district court here addressed this question in detail, we consider its factual findings in analyzing this issue. So they're just going to go over this. Federal copyright law lays out several categories of protected subject matter, such as literary works, motion pictures, and more. Although the statute doesn't mention characters, there is a long history of extending copyright protection to graphically depicted characters. But not every comic book, television, or motion picture character is entitled to copyright protection. So there was a case called Towle, which created the Towle test. And in that, we established a test to determine whether a character is entitled to copyright protection. The character must have physical as well as conceptual qualities. The character must be sufficiently delineated to be recognizable as the same character whenever it appears, and display consistent, identifiable character traits and attributes. And the character must be essentially distinctive and contain some unique elements of expression. Eleanor fails at every prong of this test. Accordingly, Eleanor is not entitled to character copyright protection. We first ask whether Eleanor is a character with physical as well as conceptual qualities. Our precedent is primarily focused on physical qualities. And they've talked about things like the Batmobile. But equally important are the conceptual qualities that all characters inherently possess. These include anthropomorphic qualities, acting with agency and volition, displaying sentence and emotion, expressing personality, speaking, thinking, or interacting with other characters or objects. Of course, these conceptual qualities are by no means limited to human characters. Animals, objects, or even anthropomorphized emotions may possess the conceptual qualities of character. Indeed, we have found a car to be copyrightable character where it expressed personality and a demonstrated level of autonomy. They described the Batmobile as loyal to Batman, and the Batmobile as waiting like an impatient steed straining at the reins, shivering as its supercharged motor throbs with energy before it tears after the fleeing hoodlums. So Eleanor lacks any such conceptual qualities. Indeed, Eleanor has no anthropomorphic traits. The car never acts with agency or volition. Rather, it is always driven by the film's protagonist. Eleanor expresses no sentience, emotion, or personality. Now, here's where it gets goofy. The copyright holder suggests that Eleanor does have some anthropomorphic qualities. For example, in the remake, Eleanor's engine sputters and dies, suggesting possible jealousy. I must have missed that. However, nor does Eleanor speak, think, or otherwise engage or interact with the film's protagonist. Instead, Eleanor is one of many named cars in the film. In this way, Eleanor is more akin to a prop than a character. Accordingly, Eleanor fails at prong 1. Turning to prong 2, because we're just going to do this for academic sake, we ask whether Eleanor is sufficiently delineated to be recognizable as the same character whenever it appears and displays consistent, identifiable character traits and attributes. Although a character that has appeared in multiple productions or iterations need not have a consistent appearance, it must display consistent, identifiable character traits and attributes such as that be recognizable whenever it appears. By contrast, a character that lacks a core set of consistent and identifiable character traits and attributes is not protectable because the character is not immediately recognizable as the same character when it appears. Here, too, Eleanor fails. Across 4 films and 11 iterations, Eleanor lacks consistent traits. For example, Eleanor's physical appearance changes frequently throughout the various films, appearing as a yellow and black fastback Mustang, a gray and black Shelby GT500 Mustang, and a rusty, paintless Mustang in need of repair. Those aren't the same character. So, in sum, Eleanor is too lightly sketched to satisfy that second prong. Third, we consider whether Eleanor is especially distinctive and contains some unique elements of expression. To meet that prong, a character cannot be a stock character, such as a magician in standard magician garb, nor is a character especially distinctive if it fits general, stereotypical categories like an old scholar, a loyal friend, or a military leader. Those are all examples to other cases that they cited here. Eleanor is not especially distinctive. Nothing distinguishes Eleanor from any number of sports cars appearing in car-centric action films. Nor is the name Eleanor unique, or rather it is a common female name, the normalcy of which was the entire point of using that code name. In sum, Eleanor is not really a character. And even if Eleanor were a character, it is not entitled to copyright protection. Accordingly, we affirm the judgment of the district court that Eleanor is not entitled to character copyright protection. Court goes on for a few more pages, talks about the settlement agreement that the parties had, whether or not it's breached, and whether it matters now that we've ruled that Eleanor is not a copyrightable character. And then they talk about whether or not the court should have granted Carroll Shelby licensing, the injunction and the order he was seeking, and then it gets sent back down. But the gist of this is that the Court of Appeals is saying Eleanor is not a copyrightable character, okay? Shrek, maybe. Eleanor, no, okay? There's a big distinction. I think most people saw that. And so the weird part about this is that it wasn't even the same car from the earlier movie to the later movie. They were different years. They were different body styles. And so to do a tribute car based on something that you saw in a movie, and then to have somebody come at you legally and go, we're going to sue you if you do anything with that car. I mean, I remember reading articles about this years ago going, this is just insanity. But it would take somebody to file an action, which can be expensive. So apparently Carroll Shelby Licensing thought it was worth their while, because number one, they're entangled in litigation already with the copyright holder. But now, of course, they've got this. And yes, you are now free to build yourself an Eleanor if you want to. And quite frankly, I mean, I've seen a lot of car chase movies. There was a whole genre of them back in the day. Vanishing Point, Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry. I mean, there were often drive-ins that would have 3 showing in one night. Just nothing but car chases for hours and hours and hours up on a screen nobody's watching. However, my point is, I'm not sure how many people actually said, gee, I'm going to go home and build me a replica of that Eleanor from the first movie. I don't know if anybody ever did that. But then to say, well, I'm going to build an Eleanor from the second, the remake of the first movie. How come it's not the same car as the first one? Well, because they're different cars. Okay, if they're different cars, they can't be the same Eleanor. I mean, that right there is where it falls apart for me. But I remember reading one of the earlier cases of this, earlier opinions on an earlier case in this litigation, and reading the argument being made by the copyright holder that Eleanor was a character. Okay, that is such a stretch. Now, if you see the Pixar movie Cars, there are cars there that are characters, but they're also anthropomorphic, as we say. They talk, they have personalities, they've got names, they're funny, they're entertaining. And if you took one of those cars out of that movie and saw it someplace else, you go, oh, that's the car from that movie. But if you saw Eleanor, either for the first one or the second one, at a car show, you might go, oh, that's a tribute to that car in that movie. It's not that big of a deal. And actually, the only person who made it that big of a deal was the copyright holder, who treated this like it was the end of the planet, that people were knocking off these cars. Quite frankly, like I said before, it was a good-looking car, but it's not the greatest car I've ever seen in a movie. And I can tell you right now, I didn't run home going, boy, I want to build one of those. But, hey, what can I tell you? All I know is that legally, her argument fails. That is the copyright holder. So as of right now, you are free to build a replica of Eleanor. Pick which one you want to build because they're different. And likewise, if you do that and somebody sues you for copyright infringement, you'll win because they've already been ruled against that that's been ruled against them in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Will this get appealed higher? It could, but would it win? No. Because remember, there's three prongs, and the court says you lose on all three. And I'm pretty sure all you got to do is lose on one and you lose. So it's a losing battle. So thanks to everybody who sent that to me. It's been covered widely in the press, but I'm going off of the opinion Carroll Shelby Licensing versus the copyright holder of Eleanor. And this is the opinion that just came down recently. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. When we're positive, we become more motivated, energetic, resilient, and productive.